Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this budget work session where all we're going to do is talk about the budget. I know many of you council members have been doing homework on the budget and have some ideas, and I don't know, Mr. Brubaker, if you want to start, I know you have a work product there for us to consider.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Okay. What I've done here is I have decided that, in my opinion, that we should not reduce the budget further than the 11 cents proposed by the city administrator because of the difficult situations we face in the next 2 years. We have 3 years of this tax assessment cycle, but we have other requirements we have to meet, and the current proposed budget portrays large deficits in FY16 and FY17. So what I worked on, because I really wasn't happy with the 11 cents unless I could find a way to keep that and to try to keep it from further increases. So what I've done is put a series of options and things that we need to look at and policies that need to be brought before us over the next 6 months so that we've made advance decisions and know where we are. And I can use this to keep track, I think, of where we are in relation to next year, because if we raise it, whatever we decide to raise it to this year, I don't want to have to raise it again. If we raise it 11 cents, we'll be at 89.8. I think we have to not only consider where we are in relation to other municipalities, but we have to consider where we are, more importantly, to the surrounding unincorporated area. I think that's the major, I hate to say competition because I like to think of us as one region, but when people look at places to build, develop, add to tax base, they certainly look at the difference in tax rates as one of their key considerations. Furthermore, I've tried to maintain the current array of city services, not propose a major change in that. I think if we get through this 3-year cycle and we still don't have renewed revenues, we'll have to look at major restructuring of the city government. But I hope and I think we can do it this way without needing to do that. I haven't focused on picking out particular departments or particular positions, but we'll need to continue the tight position management, and there's numbers estimated down below that emphasize that we've had for the last 5 years. We've already had lean years, and unfortunately we'll have to continue that. What it is an option. It's a menu of mayor and council decisions. I'm not saying there's any one way to do this. But what I am saying is, especially in the bold items, but also some of the other items, we'll need to have a staff workup bring specific numbers to us, and we'll need to make calls. We'll need to make decisions, or else we'll be back in this same boat next year, maybe even worse. I will take responsibility for the ranges and estimated time of implementation. But I did do these after discussion with staff. They're very preliminary numbers, trying to ballpark where we are with the number of these different policies. I want to emphasize that the last year on this sheet, FY17, which we'll be making the decisions on in calendar 16, it's the last round for many of the bargaining units. it's the last budget decisions, last budget this mayor and council will make, and it's the last year of the assessment cycle. So this really encompasses, you know, the whole range of where this council will be making decisions. Unfortunately, it does not include any additional funds for mayor and council initiatives. We'd have to do the high end of these estimates or find other offsets or raise taxes in order to do that. All the worthy people that will be coming asking us for money, if we can't do it with bond capacity, that's about the only place I see right now that we have significant funding or potential funding available. So what I've done since the 11-cent budget was balanced, I have added, however, two of Mr. Councilman Arshire's changes, the American bond reimbursement, assuming that that will come through. The stadium lease I had to divide into 2 years since that's when the payments are. The 35 and 35 is the 70 that we got as a payback. And I left question marks. Some people said they might consider cuts this year even in community events or funding for other agencies. I'm not sure whether we can come to a consensus on that, so I didn't put any numbers since our budget's balanced. You'll see in the out years, we'll sort of have to go after that, but I'm not saying we have to do that in FY15. So when you get to the way this works, you get down to the bottom, that 120, and this is all in thousands, of course. The 126,000 down below are, the additional revenues from Councilman Arshire's sheet, and added onto the almost non-existent surplus. And this is over the general fund target. I didn't fool with fund balance this year because it's moot. The budget's balanced. So that 126 carries up to help fund next year. It's the top of FY16. You'll see the 126, and you'll see that in the next years. So we're starting with the budget, the number out of the budget, $3.5 million, 3,536. That's in the financial projection number that the staff says that we're short in FY16. As we know, that's a huge number. I can go through these one by one, but on Assume America, there's some chance that could be discontinued. So on the low side, I was deliberately pessimistic. These are all, just assumptions. The 90 is the continuation of the 90 that we're assuming for 15. Stadium lease is unknown, but you'll notice that goes away in FY17. Again, increased funding positions for increased vacancy savings with funded positions. That's asking the city administrator to tighten the screws a bit further in that direction. Here's a big one. I just don't see, much as we need it, I think we still have to continue deferring vehicle purchase. This isn't the whole amount. The whole amount was over $2 million. You can see on the low side and the high side, but that's we're in a fiscal situation where people will keep positions but have to drive and make do with vehicles. Workman's comp, staff is looking at that. That's one of the things I think they need to bring to us. Can we continue, keeping that fully paid up while we're going through this fiscal situation? I think we're facing enough that we can look at not destroying the fund. We'll be fine to pay off, but we should look for a number we can get from that for FY16 and 17. Same with health insurance reserve. Then a big one is general fund balance policy. The GFO recommends 16.9%. That would allow funding between those two numbers somewhere. I'm not going to say what that might be because I think the staff needs to bring it to us. I know they're uncomfortable with it, but it is a GFO guideline. So again, I think we're facing a time of financial hardship, and that's when you do use your reserve. If you don't use your reserve in hardship, then I don't know when you use it. Stabilized police and fire pension contributions. We had been building up the reserve. We may have to defer building up the reserve. The fund's still there. It's not taken away from it. It's deferring it, not building it up at the rate we've been building up. All things I supported doing, but we can only be conservative so long. Adjust health insurance program. That's a little bit different than what I have up above at number 10. That means when FY16 rolls around, it's the bargaining unit year. We're facing penalties for having a platinum health insurance plan. I put a number out there in FY17 because I don't think we'll send that signal to our staff negotiators if we want to until then. That's my guess. And we really can't do much about it until FY17 because, again, the bargaining units right now are pretty well locked in. So I put that out in FY17. Funding and fees for community events. We can move that forward, but it's never as easy as people say. Everybody has a different idea of who shouldn't be in there. A number of us have been, all of us really have been through that before. I put it out in 17. We might be able to move that forward if people want to take that subject up as one of the early items before next year's budget. Maintain unfunded position levels. Again, that's a little bit different than vacancies and funded position. It really means Michelle, and I think rightfully, had assumed that we could begin funding some of the positions we've been holding open all this time. I don't know that we can do that. Another hard one, number 17. Are we going to be able to, do a full COLA, do COLAs and steps right away in FY17? I really don't know the answer to that. It's another place to possibly get some money, and it's the first year we have flexibility with the bargaining units, but you can see how tough these decisions are. And again, decrease the part-time temp staffing level. It still remains at about 600,000, I think, even with these cuts. Again, I'm trying to maintain the thrust of services. Increase fees, fines, permits, and licenses. I just lumped them all together. Some of them are kind of locked in, and 25 to 75 is what I'm betting we'd be lucky to get when we start just trying to decide what to do, if any. But that's another thing that needs to be brought to us as a package should we choose to pursue that. There was an error in the Maryland Theater. The 200, the money we put in was carried out. Shall remind me again, why 200 was carried out, not 260?
Right, we had 60,000 in fiscal year 14, and in our fiscal year 15 budget, I have 200. So some of their projects actually starting, and as they start their project, we're going to go ahead and reimburse some now.
Okay, well, that's a correction. Then I put, although these to me are really just substitutes for property tax, but revenue sources like stormwater fees, that doesn't have to be. That can be based on pervious surface and things like that. But it probably would largely be offsetting new expenditures. So, how much? Traffic, we're not allowed to raise the existing fees for the school zones any significant extent. So the consideration would be if the chief can bring us safety considerations at intersections, other considerations along that line. I think we always want to blend safety as well as revenues. A fire tax, well, to me, a fire tax is a substitute for property tax. If for some reason the county wanted to do a tax on its urban area, maybe there could be a combined tax. That would make more sense. I just put it out there, something that might be out there. State highway extension of route maintenance. Put a number in for that. It's something Rodney and I have been working on, but whether it will ever come to fruition is up in the air. So the way this works is, at the bottom, if we do some of these things but only do them in the low range, we still have $1 million issue in FY16. And if we continue in the low range, you can see that number moving up to the $4 million problem, and we don't solve it. It's a $3 million problem by the end of the process. So we have to make some of these tough decisions, or we'll have to raise taxes. You can see there's a small surplus on the high side in FY16. That moves up on the high side for FY17, and then we do wind up with a surplus, but we will never implement all these options. It's only theoretical. So it can be addressed. I think we have to address it somehow. I just really hate to see, I think there's a compromise between how far we can go with taxes to do all the things we want to do and be that much higher than other municipalities in the county. I think we have to have a balance, and to me right now, the 11 cents is the balance. I think if we want to find general funds to support things, we're going to have to look at taxes. We do something this year, it's just going to flip over into next year. So I'm trying to get an expression from the council that staff will need to bring these topics to us in the first half of, not the whole budget, these particular topics or any other that any other council member wants to do, and we need to make decisions about them. We need to instruct the city administrator where we want him to go on some of these. I've talked with the staff. I think that's all feasible and doable. So I decided not to go after FY15 because I just think it creates an even deeper hole in 16 and 17. But I also looked at raising it. Raising it would give us some initiative money. If we raised it even 4 cents, as high as 15 cents, we'd still have to do a bunch of these things if we did put money in for initiative. So, that's, I think every time we approve an expenditure increase, we're driving that number at the bottom to a situation where we won't be able to deal with it.
Well, that sounds like a very thorough examination of the budget, and the effort you put into this is highly appreciated, and I'd like to hear some reaction from folks. Mr. Munson.
Marty, thank you. This is a lot of effort. I'm sure you put many, many hours into this, maybe dozens. How does this outline affect our efforts with regard to urban partners?
Well, that's a good question. We have $1.5 million in bond capacity in the budget. This doesn't touch that. I think, and I'm willing to work with Michelle to try to nail down sort of a number for bond capacity. It's my sense that there'll be room in that regard. But if we want to do anything that we have to fund from general revenues, it adds to the problem here. So I don't know what those numbers might be, but to the extent we can fund it with bonds, let's see if we can find a way. Like I said, there's $1.5 million. I would bet that we can do that for a while. Again, it depends how far we go with stuff outside the CBD, with MELP, or, things like that.
I would also add, we're not completely sure yet exactly what Urban Partners is going to recommend
course.
city contributions to any efforts be at this point, although the preliminary information is coming in at this, so by next month we'll have, but certainly not by the time we approve the budget.
And
Any
again,
other-
there's certain things we could do if we, if we got somebody, for instance, this is just a for instance, in the surface lot area and decided to move forward with that, and I haven't seen the pro forma on that from them. Let's say we could get a Class A building, because even our renovated buildings don't appear that they'll be Class A, to sort of set a trend. And if we got far enough there, we could support a parking garage with the parking fund if we haven't expended the parking fund elsewhere. Parking fund, in my opinion, will support about one parking garage. So, but that's, that's all moving in.
Of course.
Any other feedback, reactions, thoughts, ideas?
Michelle, do you have a response to this?
We actually have spent some time. We've sat down and we've looked back through the budget book. I spent some time with Kristen earlier, and I think this plan and approach incorporates several of those suggestions that Councilmember Alshire had. It even continues some of those suggestions in the out years. I think that as long as there is a reasonable approach, as long as we have a good general fund balance policy in place, and as long as we are not dipping into our reserves without strengthening our revenue, as long as we are not dipping into all of our reserves and doing nothing but bond financing, we have to also grow our revenue base and have good fiscal policies in place. And I think what Councilmember Brubaker is proposing certainly covers that. But again, with the 11 cents, which is what was in the proposed budget, it still leaves a lot of tough decisions that need to be made in fiscal year 16 and 17. And there are options. Again, one thing we could do is do another, instead of doing 11 cents, we could do 15 cents. If we did 15 cents in fiscal year 15, that additional monies would be monies that would allow mayor and council initiatives for some community projects, some ways to give back to the community. But it's not going to solve all the problems. There's still going to be difficult decisions in fiscal year 16 and 17 that have to be faced.
And I have to say, like I said earlier, we did look at that scenario. This is my scenario. You could certainly add, it'd be easy to drop in the money from an additional tax increase. I don't right now support that, but if we did one, it would provide the things that Michelle said. So,
And this plan, I mean, unless the decision and the guidance and the feedback is go ahead and start looking at other services, go ahead and make suggestions and recommendations on cuts. If the strategy is to maintain our current service level, then I think at the end of the day, based on that, these are our options.
Yeah, and it's so easy to say, we'll just cut more. But when you've already cut, how many, 59 positions a few years back, and you've restructured many different parts of the government, employees have gone 4 years without any kind of increases. If our goal is to grow the local economy, we can't keep cutting our way to growth, it seems to me.
Right.
Because it is indeed a big portion of the increase goes to, not a big portion, we've already know that a big portion is going to make up for the fact that we're losing the base, but the part of the above and beyond goes mostly to employees, and I think that it's important for us to understand that money gets spent in the local economy. That's money in people's pockets that pay for basic goods and services, and so I think that's just an important point to keep in mind.
And this hasn't gone after that,
Right.
except for tighter, management, or continuing the tight management.
But I do appreciate the fact that, some of the employee-related expenditures beyond just steps and COLAs are also considered in the future, because I do think our employees have to be partners with us in terms of fiscal stewardship and making sure that we have a solid fiscal foundation.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is we can't, it's very difficult to completely fund all these fringe benefit impacts, and we'll have to face that, particularly in FY17, I think.
Any other thoughts, ideas, reactions? Mr. Alshire, what do you? Okay. Are you supporting the increase, or what's your sense of what about your sense of the budget at this point?
I think you have a majority of folks that are interested in passing the budget as presented.
Well, I'm not interested in the majority. I want to know what you think.
I gave you my suggestions.
So this information doesn't change your mind about that?
It doesn't.
Okay.
I
Do you
mean,
have your microphone on? Sorry.
It doesn't change my opinion on the budget. It might, it reflects a very similar sheet that I gave to Mayor and Council last year that said these things are upon our doorstep, and if we don't act, they are going to overrun us.
So you're planning to vote against the budget?
That's correct.
Okay. I don't know, because I don't know if I have a majority. We haven't counted any votes at this point. Mr. Munson, I'm assuming that he's assuming that you're voting for the budget. So is that a safe assumption? I'm not trying to count my chickens before they hatch, but I want to make sure that I'm making proper assumptions.
Mayor, I will be supporting the majority, what I perceive as the majority. I don't think there are any options. I don't like to raise taxes. In 36 years in the legislature, I voted for increased taxes on three different occasions out of thousands and thousands of proposals. But when you get to this level of government, where government really has to work on a day-to-day basis, and there are no resources other than property taxes, there's few choices. So I'm going to be supporting the 11 cents. There are things I'd like to see in this budget. Quite frankly, I'm unhappy with the city's present way of handling curbing in the city. I don't think that the citizens ought to be stuck with that bill. I think as individuals, I think that should be a program that the city provides, but that's an additional $1.50. And I'm not interested in, at this time, voting to increase taxes another $1.50. But I am, this weekend I went to several, just like all the rest of you, I went to several different social events. And I have to say that at every social event, people came up to me and requested that I request of city government services which they need. Went to the Maryland Theater. People came up to me and said, here's an issue in my neighborhood. I need these services. Went to a Little League baseball game, and people came up to me and said, there's an issue in my neighborhood. I need these services. And the populace of the city continues to demand services. Somehow, they've got to be paid for. And this is not an easy time. This is not an easy time to be on the council for the first time and be a first-time mayor. But sometimes you just have to be responsible and do what you have to do.
If I can just ask a question, I was under the impression you had indicated from looking at the budget that you didn't see how we could effectively not have this type of a tax increase without having basic structural changes. So I'm curious what it is that you would support or what it is that I should support from your perspective.
Sure. I think that just like last year, I put on the table at least a dozen items that I felt comfortable would not provide me any great heartburn in maneuvering within the budget to reduce the overall impact. I said from the very outset, whether it be in this setting or any other, that 7.5 cents, 8.5 cents, somewhere in that neighborhood, I think is a reasonable expectation. But two things exist. The first is addressing not just the immediate items, but the repetition of this exact same conversation we're going to have again next year. Just like I said last year, we would have this year. And that will happen. I mean, that's going to happen. And the second is putting off those sort of 3 to 5 to 7 year out year items that are not being addressed. So to me, like I said 2 weeks ago, I think there are immediate options that lessen the blow to address
Can you
that
give us some
impact.
so we can discuss
I gave you a
them?
whole paper of them a couple of weeks ago. I mean, when I got a budget at the end of March, I read the budget, put together a list of items, and met with staff, put the items on a piece of paper, and said, here are things I could live with. And I said the other week, they aren't huge items because I tried to focus an effort on not creating any drastic heartburn over any one single issue. And I guess if we would like to sit here and
I know there were
discuss that, let's take FY16. And Marty, I think that a lot of work is in this. But FY16 in this proposal, a significant part of these changes are premised on the decrease in CIP general fund pay-go. And they make up more than 50% of those projected changes, which only then defers or attaches itself to the bond issuance that you have. And so, those I think are the two arenas that I think that we should be focused on, so that and like I said, I hear that we're going to be 11 cents this year, and based on this approach, it may or may not be enough, but I think that we do what we can within each budget to maneuver it so that that blow is lessened. And that's why I felt when I proposed those items, they were sort of, okay, here's what we can do to reduce.
Well, the reason I ask
the
is
impact
I know some
and
of
reduce the
them.
heartburn.
I know some of them. For instance, one thing this body hasn't even discussed was the general fund contributions to charities. And I certainly recall you having a number of those on there that you felt should be lopped, that I really didn't have a problem with either. And that's why I bring that up. What I'm curious of is, are there things here that we can get a discussion, a compromise on that may involve less than the 11 cents, but more than 7.5, and mainly because, Marty, you didn't look at the public functions.
I looked at all Kristen's things. I looked at them all. And he doesn't have there's not out year things here.
That was last year.
There's
But you're talking
There's
about
things that
line
talk about-
15, right? Line 15 is decreased funding for other agencies, right?
yeah. I put
Right,
a question mark because I didn't know whether people had the.
Well, no, but that-
The thing I have here says $100,000, but
That's
it
right.
doesn't say who or what, so
I
I
fully understand, and that's why I'm bringing it up. I mean, because there may be things in here that we can agree on that are in fact not payroll, but are contributions to outside agencies that have been recurring over the years. And I'm the first one to say it's a small amount of money and we spend more time discussing it than anything else. And this year, and trying to get this budget down to nothing, we've actually discussed it at no time at all. There's been no discussion on that.
Just a reminder, though, you did discuss it last August in response to
did.
Councilmember Elshire's list from last year and the scheduling of budget work sessions. The first item on your agenda was community agency contributions.
You're correct, and the majority decided not to move
There wasn't a
on
change in the
making changes
policy
to
or
those
the funding.
contributions.
and that's why I put a question mark.
I remember
'cause
that.
I didn't put a number in there, because I didn't know.
Well,
if
do
had
we
a-
want to chop some of those contributions? I mean, for instance, I'll give you an example, CASA. They came and they said thank you. The library, the museum, and others like the community free clinic come in and justify our contribution. They tell us, for instance, what percentage of the service population they have are city residents. In 19 years in the council, I've never heard that presentation by at least that organization. I don't know what the county contributes to that organization, but I know one thing, that whenever our taxpayers pay county taxes, they are making contributions. And so that's why I say, if somebody wants to look at them, that is not affecting us. It affects nonprofit organizations. It definitely does, but in the same respect, I think we need to have some justification why the city should make those contributions, especially if our taxpayers are already making those contributions to the county. My understanding is the community free clinic is almost uniquely being done for city residents. We have a special relationship that we're acutely aware of with our museum that dates back to its beginning. I think we acutely have a relationship with our Hagerstown Municipal Band. And those organizations I would not consider cutting. But there are a whole slew of other organizations there that if wanted to try to save a penny or a half a penny, one could probably do that.
But see, Lou, when you save a half penny, that's a half penny that we don't get next year either.
Well-
That's why I decided to stay at 11 cents. I mean, whatever we decrease it to 7 cents, because I could get this down to 7 cents. But
I'm
then,
not arguing
we're-
that we should.
my problem is, that takes, either we have to raise it next year, and I don't agree with raising it year after year after year, because most of the things we're talking about aren't gonna, we need that money to fund these problems, you know?
If based on your proposal, we don't cut out $1.5 million from PAYCO next year, no matter what we do, we're going to be sitting at this table talking about tax
Yeah.
increases next year. So again, I don't
If there are other things to
I don't
add
want
to
folks
this
to walk
list.
away from here with this assumption that from this presentation that next year we're not going to be talking about 11 cents again.
We're not going to be talking about 11 cents. This is presuming 11 cents. If we don't presume 11 cents, that number, those big
I mean
numbers.
again next year.
He means another 11.
That's right.
Oh, another 11 cents. No, well, that's what I'm trying to avoid. But if there are other things to put on this list, I'm very welcome to putting them on. I incorporated what I could off of this
Oh,
list.
I understand.
I guess-
There's no use taking things out of
Oh,
fund balance
I
this
fully
year.
understand, Martin. No.
Next year,
I guess
there's no use.
a dumb question I have.
Oh, no, I would assume if these things were to be taken out this year, they would not be back in next year. They would be gone. That's my assumption.
Right. But if we lower the tax rate just because we can, then it creates that much of a problem. We lower it half a cent, that's 115 to 120,000 we don't have next year and the year after. So unless we're willing to raise it. Yes.
I guess the big thing that I think of is 11 cents or 8 cents. I mean, when we're out the next time knocking on doors, is anyone going to say, geez, thanks for only raising my taxes 8 cents instead of 11 cents that year? Because I guess the hard concept that I'm having figuring out is if we only raised it 8 cents this year, wouldn't we be talking about inevitably another tax increase next year,
Well,
even in a worse situation?
that would add $700,000 to the.
And again, I'm
problem.
dense, so I need your input, Mr. Alshire.
I feel like it's Groundhog Day here. I mean, last year I gave you a list and said, hey, here are the things on our doorstep. If we don't address these things by FY16, they are going to overrun us. And in those are some of these very things that are on the list that Marty's proposed and well identified that now are shown in FY17.
Well,
And so now, and all I'm saying is we're sort of moving the ball back, and 8 cents this year doesn't have to be another 4 cents next year, and another 6 cents the year after that. All I'm saying is I completely believe, without addressing both those small, less heartburn related immediate items that are simple and easy to do to decrease the impact this year.
Like vehicles and all that stuff.
And going ahead and saying we're going to address these half a dozen long-term structural items now, we won't be in that situation, or we could prevent that situation, but we seem to be doing both, and I don't know how else to put it except we seem to be saying we're not really going to do anything to address the budget we've been given in some immediate nature because that's what we need, and we're going to go ahead and fund it that way. And we're not really going to talk about these other items. We're going to push them out another year, and neither in my mind, whether it's last year's budget or this year's budget, and foreseeing next year's budget, are in my head going to resolve those two issues, and so that's how I see the next 3 years worth of budgets going for this body.
I do think the value, as Councilmember Brubaker's talked to Michelle and me about his plan, I would say one of the values in that approach that he was taking is that it's a 3-year view, which I think is really important to take. And you're all saying it different ways. There's difficult decisions to be made in the future. And some of those are topics that we started wrestling with over the past 12 months with some of our budget work sessions in terms of revenues and community agency funding and some of those topics. But I think the 3-year focus is important. If we just look at this in terms of, to be honest, staff could have lowered the tax rate increase if all we were looking at was the FY15 budget. But it would have made it a lot tougher for the mayor and council and the city and our operations in 16 and 17 if we don't strengthen our revenues, which is, I think, really important for us to do. I don't think we can avoid that need. The other thing I would encourage the council to consider is, and I think you're doing that, if you're going to raise taxes, I would suggest, if possible, do it in 1 year and be done with it. Set your plan so that we can move forward knowing what the taxes are going to be for the city. And yes, we're going to have to cut pay-go capital. We knew that 3 months ago when we were finalizing the proposed budget. We know that now. We know we're going to have to make other expenditure reductions. We've been doing that for 5 years at the staff level and with the council support. So we'll be doing more of that. But I do think that 3-year approach is important. I think making a decision on the tax rate's important. Hopefully with the idea that you can do it in 1 year. I mentioned in general terms before, I think you can make a case for a higher property tax increase beyond 11 cents. I know that gets even tougher. It does set a approach for the mayor and council that would allow you to fund curb and sidewalks and take that over from residents. It would allow you to fund some of your initiatives such as the Maryland Theater and some other things you've talked about wanting to support, as well as getting our wages and benefits funded. So just to mention that you could, if you did go up to 15 cents, I think it allows you to take over curbs and sidewalks. It allows you to fund the theater and strengthen our operating revenues for wages and benefits. But having said that, if you go with an 11-cent increase, that would go a long ways toward getting our finances back in order, and it's got an eye towards fiscal year 16 and 17, which is really important. I think we'll be back. Councilmember Aylshire, actually, I felt this plan did more to reflect your ideas than some of our prior discussions because it's in there. You know, we dipped our toes in the water this summer and fall on your list from last year. Maybe the council didn't make the adjustments you were looking for at that time, but we'll be working off that list because it's part of this 3-year strategy, and it's part of those decisions that we'll have to make.
You know, this is a little tongue-in-cheek, but when you get right down to it, we can probably find something to reduce it a half cent or perhaps a penny or something. But when you get right down to it, this is a decision about whether or not we want a police department, or we want a fire department, or we want to have roads, streets, and paved streets in Hagerstown. We're talking about essential services, absolutely essential services. And this is an incredibly difficult position for this mayor and council to be. But if we don't have some income coming in to allow those things to continue to exist, why should we exist as a municipality?
I just point to the low column in FY16. Already if we did all those things, but did them on the low side, we still have $1 million issue. If we lower taxes this year, we'd have less carryover and we'd have less than FY16. We'd have less carried over to fund FY16 and we'd have less than FY16. And that's what got me back to 11 cents. It's a responsible thing to do. I mean, again, we looked at 15. I just can't. Given the competitive, given the nature of things, I think 89.8, and and we're going to have to face these issues to try to make that number 0. And that's why I gave us a list. Now, if anybody has, well, I'm not trying to brag it. I'm just trying to emphasize it. If somebody else has ideas, I can put them in. It's very easy. So it's there. That's what I would say. And I did look at these, and I incorporated a lot of it. Some of it's incorporated into 16 because it's kind of moot for 15. So.
Well, we have another hour on the agenda tomorrow, so everyone can sleep on it, digest, pick apart Councilmember Brubaker's work here, and we'll have some further discussion. Does anyone have any other comments for this evening?
Yeah, I just want to make one other. And I want to, again, before we leave, compliment Marty. Marty has put essential work into this budget for a very long time. Marty has had years and years and years of experience in budgets, more than probably anybody else in the whole county has had on budgets over the years. And he has looked at this in a way that will not constitute disaster for the future. This is a responsible budget, and I commend you again, Marty, on the work you've done. Having sat I was a senior member on the Budget Committee in the Senate, and I can really, truly appreciate the effort and thought and time and energy that you put into these issues in this budget. Thank you, Mayor.
Anyone else? Well, I want to thank Councilmember Brubaker and Councilmember Alshire for all the hard work that they put into and thought that they put into budget, especially on an ongoing basis, and keeping us focused on the issues of fiscal import. So I want to confirm or clarify that it does seem like we have majority to support the plan as it's presented. So,
Well, I'll add, I'll amend it for those cuts. I mean, not cuts, the revenue things for the stadium and the assumption about the bond reimbursement.
okay.
Could I just ask then for tomorrow real quick, just a reminder, you're scheduled to introduce the two ordinances tomorrow. That still gives you a chance to amend it between tomorrow and the 27th.
Right.
We're still on schedule for adoption.
Or
on
we
the
could
20
introduce it at the lower, with those changes.
Are we still on schedule to adopt it on the 27th?
Yeah, I mean, what I'm saying is, we could introduce it tomorrow if we had a consensus with those changes.
Well, we did, yeah, it's scheduled for
We are gonna
introduction
introduce it.
tomorrow.
Right, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying, that we could incorporate those changes into introducing it.
And then, if possible, tomorrow, we'd like to go into some of the other non-general funds. Is that okay to plan on that?
I was
Or-
going to ask about that. I was going to ask if staff wanted to say anything.
Well, it would be helpful
about the-
tomorrow if we could review parking, water, wastewater, and light.
Yes.
If you feel like you've covered the general fund in your work sessions to date.
Yeah, I think it would be responsible to summarize those funds, yes.
We've got some changes in the parking fund we want to make sure mayor and council are aware of. You may or may not wish to go with the changes we're recommending in the proposed budget, so just need some time on that. So,
Parking, water, wastewater, and light.
yeah, is that okay for tomorrow?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. All right. We will be adjourned.
Thanks for coming in on a Monday.
Yes, thanks.
No dinner tonight.
Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to start this work session. The very first thing on our agenda is to celebrate the Blues Fest visual artists. And at this time, I'm going to ask Karen Giffen, who is our Community Affairs Manager, along with Carl Disk and Marianne Burke, to come up and talk to us about the artists. It's that time of year again, isn't it?
It is.
It comes quickly, doesn't it?
First of all, we are going to have Blues Fest, May 29th through June 1st. Happy to just note before we get into the visual artists that we now have our program is to print and what will be in the Sunday Herald Mail newspaper. And we have 92 sponsors this year. We have over 200 volunteers, and we have a lot of people that are excited about that. So with that, we want to show you two aspects that has happened, and one is our visual artist that we chose. So I'll have Carl and Marianne say a little bit about Matt Long first, and then we'll go into our children's t-shirt artwork.
Well, every year our poster art competition has grown and grown. In the last 3 years, it has really taken off, and with that, the quality of the submissions has really risen. And I think you remember the posters from the last several years and how exciting they've been. And this year's selection, Bluestown Boogie by Matt Long of Frederick, is no exception to that trend. Lots of interest, lots of movement, lots of color, lots of different design elements that we can pull out for our poster, our embroidery, our hats, t-shirts, all that kind of stuff. So we're really excited that Matt, who's here, can share his work and also an exhibit at the Washington County Arts Council.
Yes, the Arts Council is happy to be part of this call for art, and it was a regional call, and we had over 76 submissions this year. It was a very tough decision for the committee because, as Carl said, the quality of the work has just been improving each year, but we're thrilled with Matt's selection. He is the poster artist this year, and he will have his own exhibit at the Arts Council beginning with an opening reception Thursday night of Blues Fest. So we invite you all to come and meet him and see his other work. He has a lot of other work coming in, and that will be there for a full month. But we're really excited about it, and it's a project the Arts Council is pleased to work with each year.
And with that, we'd like to bring Matt up and have a photo taken with the mayor and his artwork, Bluestown Boogie. Well, it's behind you. So Matt, if you would come up. Matt, if you want to say a couple words?
Sure. Is it on?
Yes, I
We
can
on?
turn it
Okay. Yeah.
Hey.
Hey, how are you?
Congratulations.
Thank you. So this is my work, Bluestown Boogie. It's a 3 foot by 4 foot canvas. It's I work with Sharpie marker and acrylic paint on the canvas. I started with a black and white sketch, and then I added the color on top, and then Sharpie back on top of that. So, you know, I really wanted to portray the energy and the vibe and the colors and the just the overall feel of the blues. And I think I kind of got that in there with you know, the colors and the movement of the line work, and kind of a more of a loose style I have. Yeah, so it's been really cool. I had a blast working on it, and I'm glad to see it up here. I'm glad to see it branding the whole festival, and quite an honor. So thank you very much.
Are you a musician?
Slightly, a little
Oh,
piano,
okay.
a little guitar. I, you know, probably safer to say I'm a visual artist than a musical artist.
Just curious.
Yeah.
That's on your day job.
My day job, I'm a graphic designer and illustrator for Bechtel Power Corporation right now. So I have a little bit of graphic background with a fine arts background.
Cool.
Can I add that we're grateful to Howard's Art Frame for framing the
Oh.
artwork as they have done each year.
Excellent.
Very graciously, they do that for the festival.
Nice.
And they
Just the
love
two of us or everybody?
I think Mary Ann Carl.
Yeah, come on up.
I didn't make you sing.
Didn't make you sing. No. It's all right. It's okay.
All right, on 3. 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. Okay.
All right. Congratulations
Yeah,
again.
thank you.
Good job.
I just want to say thanks to the Arts Council, too, for hosting my show coming up. So check it out. I got a lot of great work.
Excellent.
Good job.
And then next, we added into the festival, I believe it was 2 to 3 years ago, a children's component. And we asked that we have a T-shirt design. And this year, it has grown. In fact, I think it was over 60 submissions with the children's T-shirt poster work. And the selection is up front, and our winner is here, and her name is Delia Riss. And she will also be on exhibit at the Arts Council. And we have a runner-up, and we have a runner-up and 13 others mentioned, which we have a T-shirt poster, and they can also be seen at the Arts Council. And I don't know if you
With
two want to
thanks
add
to the
that.
Board of Education,
Yes.
Washington County Public Schools for matting all the work and facilitating the call. The call went to elementary and middle school students, and we had a lot. And Delia's school is so excited. They are just chomping at the bit for this announcement so they can let the whole school know. The principal is very excited.
And
And
tell
I'd
us
like to
what
give
school
a-
that is?
Rockland Woods?
Rockland
Okay,
Woods.
great.
And I'd like to give a shout out to, you know, we are a committee, and we're really proud of all of our committee people. In addition to Mary Ann, Justin Nykirk was really instrumental in setting this children's contest up a few years ago. So shout out to Justin for great work on this, too.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
And I think with this, and we're going to bring Delia up in a second, another component we have is we want to make sure that youth is involved in this festival. So City, CITI, host our kids area on Sunday, but also we have Blues in the Schools. And Mary Ann and the Arts Council and the Board of Education is instrumental in that, if you wanted to say a couple
Scott
words on that.
Ainsley will be coming in from Vermont, I believe, and he will perform at 3 different schools, 2 schools on Thursday and 1 on Friday of Blues Fest weekend. And he seems very excited. We are emailing several times a day.
And
So-
Scott is an expert on Robert Johnson, and for the adults that are interested in that, he'll be reprising something he did in City Park as the first entertainer on our Friday Lotta Blues show stage. So if you come Friday early, you'll get to see this great entertainer that's going to be in the schools, but also on our main stage on Friday.
And he's also coming to Matt's opening reception, so you have a chance to maybe talk with him a little bit there.
Very nice.
Nice fellow.
And with that, we'd like to bring Delia up, and we have a little gift for her, and we'd like to get a photo taken with her.
All right.
Here you go, Delia. There's a little knapsack and stuff, if you want to give that to your mom as we take the photo. Yeah, why don't we have a, yeah, we'll-
We're
Yeah, we'll
going
do
to
it.
take a picture
We'll
here?
get the
Yeah,
photo.
do it up there.
This is one of the exciting parts of my job is to call when these children win and when Matt wins. And I have to say, I called Delia and I didn't realize that I knew the family until I talked to the mother. So that was just,
nice.
so that was an
Here,
added
Delia,
addition.
come on over here. Where do you think?
Come on
Right
up.
here next to the, I'll let you figure out all the angles.
Yeah.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here.
How about she
Hello.
hold the poster?
Welcome.
Shouldn't be standing.
Why don't we get that?
We have a poster she can hold.
And Mary Ann and Carl, go ahead up.
Maybe you can do it that way.
Yes, there
and
is
get it
Carl.
in.
Come on up.
There you go. Maybe you get it in that one.
Just a little bit of,
We're going to have you hold the poster because of the light from the screen.
Oh, okay. It's not
Can you do
working.
that? Take one wide shot and one closer up, okay? All right, on three. 1, 2, 3. On three. 1, 2, 3. I'll take a small step to your right.
Or my other right.
1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Yes, good job. And thank you to the whole committee for infusing blues throughout the whole community in this process. It's really outstanding work. The excitement is definitely palpable as we get closer to the beginning of Blues Fest. Okay, the next item on our agenda is to review the preliminary agenda for next week. So if everyone can pull those out. And just to clarify, we did have a change in the rotation of the invocation schedule, and next week it is Councilmember Nye that will have the invocation. So I informed her of that earlier today, and she said she's okay with that. So we'll look forward to that. Next, we have our appointments to various boards and commissions, and staff is going to send us an update on the particulars of those appointments, just as a reminder. We have a guest, a certificate of appreciation we're going to present to Brian Poffenberger for his promotion and all the work that he's done here locally. On the consent agenda, we have a couple DCED items. We have one approval of an application permit for open containers for the MSO happy hour event. The other is the same for bike night open container permit for July 18 bike night. Any issues with those two items? Also for Public Works, there's a fuel management purchase. Any question about that one? Unfinished business, we have the repeal of the Chapter 70 cable television and open video systems that was introduced last time. The approval of the tax rates will also be on our agenda, and the budget. And of course, we'll be talking about that a little later today. New business, we have a parking rates resolution. Any questions on that one?
We'll be talking about that in the budget work session.
Right. We have the USMH MOU for maintenance and rental. Any questions on that?
Yeah, I just had one real quick question. That area, the area reserved for university use only, that was a standing agreement, right? The area that's identified for university.
That was from the agreement last year on the
Yeah.
leasing.
So
So
no-
we just want to be consistent with the other two MOUs.
Right, right. That's nothing new.
Correct.
Yeah, that's nothing new.
Correct.
Then we have items C through I, our residential lease agreements. Any questions on any of those leases? I think these are just annual renewals. The item J, the resolution for the action plan. That's CDBG, right? The item K, the MOU for the grant funds for Kiwanis Park. Any question on that? That's with this, what is that, soil conservation? Item L, approval of standards for Circle of Achievement inductions at Memorial Park. We discussed that a little earlier in executive session. We do have some folks we'll be appointing to that. You'll notice under appointments. Approval of first, third projects, which will be on our agenda upcoming here tonight. Approval of non-union employee cost of living adjustment and pay step increase. Any questions on that one?
There's material in your packet on that.
Also, item O, approval of HPD take-home vehicles. Any questions on that one? And then, of course, the speed camera contract extension. Also, information in there on that. Any questions right now about any of those items on the agenda for next week? And if you find in your continuing review of this material, please don't hesitate to contact staff if you have questions on any of that. All right, hearing no concerns on the preliminary agenda, we will move on to item 3, the 2 first, third city center grant applications. So esteemed staff will join us at the table.
I'm going to pass out a copy of what we're going to be looking at on the screen. A little bit more information about these projects.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
The established goals of the First Third Grant Program are to inspire and enable significant redevelopment throughout the city, reusing and repurposing existing and vacant and underutilized properties. It's also to create opportunities for new jobs. And the last goal is to increase values of commercial and mixed-use properties. I'm pleased to present for your consideration 2 projects that the First Third Grant Committee believes accomplishes these goals. Together, these projects represent more than $1.1 million of investment in City Center Hagerstown. And 1/3 of this amount represents the grant requests for city participation, an amount close to $396,000. Per the approved guidelines for the First Third program, applications seeking funding greater than $50,000 are to be reviewed by the mayor and council. To explain the process a little bit, when an application arrives, the First Third Grant Committee evaluates the application for completeness and compliance with what is required. Next, a site visit is scheduled so the committee can physically see and hear what the applicant proposes for the project. Finally, the committee decides whether an application has enough merit to be presented to the mayor and city council for consideration of funding. There's two projects here that I'd like to bring. One is 20 West Washington Street, the Grand Building. The applicant is Mr. Michael Fitzgerald, who is in the audience this evening. And then the second one is the Junior Fire Company at 105 North Potomac Street. The applicants are Doug and Christy Carroll. Mrs. Carroll is here tonight. Mr. Carroll is traveling. But to describe the projects a little bit, we'll start with the Grand Building on 20 West Washington Street. It is a complete renovation of the inside of the building, renovating and redoing a lot of the components of HVAC. I'm going to start going through the PowerPoint if you want to follow along. The front lobby he started his renovations already on this building because as soon as he purchased it, he wants to get it ready to get tenanted up again. And so Mr. Fitzgerald has already done some serious renovations to the lobby, new flooring, new finishes. The building itself has suffered from over a decade of just general neglect and really had no viable tenants in the building one viable tenant in the building at the time who remains. but that's about the extent of it. The proposed renovations aim to position the building into the focal point of activity that it once was on West Washington Street. So the new chandelier and flooring in the lobby really reflect a vastly improved first impression when you walk into the building. The restaurant on the storefront restaurant will be renovated again to attract another viable restaurant tenant. It had been in serious disrepair. Renovations have begun on the restaurant portion already to try to attract, and I know that Mr. Fitzgerald has showed many restaurant tenants that space already. Let's see. All the corridors in the building are being upgraded. He's repainting everything, and there's going to be new crown molding all the way up and down the hallways. It already exists in some places. New flooring, new tile floors. The elevator lobbies on all the floors are being repaired, and flooring is being replaced. The elevator cabs themselves are going to receive something called a cab kit. It's a retrofit on the existing sufficient elevator structure, but the interiors will be completely renovated. On the second floor, you might remember there was a ballroom. It was kind of a dark place. He has completely renovated the flooring of this ballroom. Wow. It's very attractive now, and he's going through renovating some of the additional meeting rooms in the bar area as well. Some of the structural things that Mr. Fitzgerald has done for this building, he's already put a new roof on. It was in bad need of a new roof, and he will be replacing the boiler, which is a very large job, and completely upgrading the cooling system throughout the building. One of the last things he's going to be doing is renovating that exterior elevator access. You might, walking down that alley there's an elevator door sitting on the back of this building that's always kind of caught my eye. And he intends to reopen that and to provide access to the rest of the building easily from the parking deck behind. So the total project cost is $460,000. Mr. Fitzgerald's grant request is $150,000. Moving on to the second application. Mr. and Mrs. Carroll took on a huge project when they purchased the junior fire company. Now they're ready to take the project to the next step. They intend, there we go. Some of the scope of this project includes a new roof, repairing the bell tower, installing accessible bathrooms. They will repair and replace plaster on all the walls, renovate a second floor reception area, repair and replace all the existing plumbing, all the existing HVAC equipment, and install an elevator to the second and actually to the third floor also from a newly renovated lobby area. What this is going to be is a new, unique banquet facility hall on that first block of North Potomac Street, second block of North Potomac Street, and really adding again to the vitality of that block. Some of the pictures here are the existing conditions: the bell tower, which is in need of a new roof and some serious woodwork. Renovating the facade, all the HVAC, as I mentioned. Moving on, the interior space, they might be able to retain some of the existing retail space on the first floor, but also they might be putting in a smaller reception area that would complement the larger reception area planned for the upstairs, which I'll show some floor plans for that in a moment. But there are, if you see inside the lobby there where the stone is sitting, that's where an elevator will go to make the building accessible to everybody. Existing conditions in the building, there are some beautiful stained glass windows. And then it really has up on the second floor, it has a very unique, wide open floor plan with a mezzanine that looks over it. It's currently occupied by a martial arts group who enjoys the large space, but they're really looking at a higher and better use for the space right now. And here's kind of a cobbled together view of the main area floor looking from the mezzanine. The intended floor plans, the proposed floor plans, it would include a new lobby outlay on the first floor with like I mentioned, the elevator. And the first floor could either be a reception area or catering staging. The intention is to work with various area caterers to service the unique banquet facility. The second floor, which would have the banquet facility, would also have large his and hers bathrooms and/or dressing rooms for if it was for wedding parties and things like that, which would be one of the intended uses. And then up on the mezzanine level, there is potential pantry or other support services for the catering hall itself. And then what we don't have a floor plan for is a potential honeymoon suite or bed and breakfast suite on the third floor, and actually going up into the bell tower to complement the reception area down below. The third grant review committee believes that these investments will create the opportunity for higher and better uses of these properties. Both investments will contribute heavily to the vitality of their respective blocks. And the committee believes these projects are aligned with the established vision of downtown Hagerstown.
And I just want to make sure everyone understands how this works, is that no grant is given until the projects are actually completed, and basically the applicants have already spent their money and made their investment, and it will be almost like a rebate by the city.
Correct.
Or a grant after the work is complete.
That's correct.
Discussion, comments, questions?
Well, I'll say these are among the landmark buildings downtown. I mean, Junior Fire Company is one of the first things when you enter Hagerstown. Wow, and wow for two different reasons. And I think it'll be, I really commend the developers for doing this. I think if these can be done successfully, I think we'll get our value added. I think it's a pretty reasonable investment, and I wish them the best. And I think the city's done this in a business-like way. We have a 7-member committee that looks at this and evaluates it, and we've gone over it, and I think I think this is a very good program.
I would note that both of these properties are in the Arts and Entertainment
Right.
District as well.
Good point.
Mr. Metzner, did you want to say something?
Would parrot Councilmember Brubaker's comments. Both very worthy projects and both very needed, and both of these buildings have been hallmarks in the city and are going to hopefully return to the grandeur they have been in the past.
Ms. Nye?
No, I think they're great. I'm anxious to see the old grand piano is where Rococo's was, wasn't it?
Yes.
In there.
Yeah.
I'm anxious to
The old
see
grand-
it
Yeah.
back to where it was. Well, it wasn't the first. What was there before that? Oh, before grand piano. Yeah, but who was there before that? Way back.
Irely's?
Was it Arley's that was in there, Dawn? I don't remember. I can't remember. I know they had the big window, but anyway, it'll be great. And the Fair House, I'm really looking forward to that. Yeah.
Mr. Monson?
Congratulations on the developers. They're taking a risk, they're taking a chance on downtown Hagerstown, and hopefully others will follow. I've been into Mike's building. It's gorgeous, and certainly going to appeal to a lot of people once they see that building, what it looks like on the inside, what he's already done on the inside. Is going to have to appeal to a lot of potential renters. So thanks to you, Mike, Christy, thanks to you for the chance you're taking on downtown Hagerstown, so we can show to the world how good a downtown can be.
Mr. Alshire?
I'm glad you made the comment that it's important that folks understand how this works. Because the memo you provided May 16th says Mayor and City Council, after the committee gets it, it's sent on for their consideration of funding, then a public work session is held. But that's not how it works. How it works is the committee does the analysis, makes recommendation, and then we discuss it in closed session, not a public session. So the comments that I have are a reflection of my comments from the breadth of information that we got to review in a closed session, not the information that we're providing to the public here. It was certainly much more broad. And I certainly, in that discussion, had two different opinions on the two projects because clearly, in my view, of all of that information we received, one project was clearly at a different point in securing itself within the process than the other, and that's the grant. I mean, the individual has private development experience, has already received bank security for the project, and is doing a type of project which is office and restaurant space that is in some form of need downtown. The other project, the owners did not provide experience with prior development, did not have bank security when coming in, and are proposing a type of banquet space which, if I could think off the top of my head, there is a number of banquet type spaces downtown that to me I have never seen bursting for need. And so it doesn't speak to anything about whether I want to pick and choose which building should be fixed up or over another, but rather if we're going to expend the public's money, that we do so with some strategic fashion for projects that already have that security, have that development experience, and have that market demand to succeed.
Okay. Well, it looks like there's clear support for moving forward with both of these grants. And so we have these on for our regular session next week. And if in the meantime anyone has any questions, I'm sure you can contact Andrew.
Anytime.
All right. And do we have more applications in the pipeline under review, or how's that?
We
going?
are expecting a couple more.
Okay, great. Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do the developers want to say make any comments while they're here?
They're welcome to, as far as I'm.
Would you like to hear from him? Mr. Fitzgerald, would you like to come forward? And
I just want to say thank you for your support.
okay. Duly noted. Ms. Carroll?
I second that as well. Thank you very much for your support. I'm sure my husband will be very pleased with you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. Okay, at this time we're going to turn back to the budget. We did have a work session yesterday, even though I don't think anybody except the people around this table were here. But I believe we have exhausted our discussion on the general fund. It seems that there is a majority who support moving forward with the proposal of the city administrator, so that we do have that majority support for next week. Ms. Nye, we missed you last night. Any opinions you have on the general fund you'd like to share? Would you like to express to us how you plan on voting next week? Or are you going to save your powder for
I'll
next
save
week?
mine.
Okay. You're going to keep us all in suspense.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, I know tonight staff wanted to cover a couple of the other funds in the budget, so I'm going to turn it over to staff at this point.
Sure. Specifically due to the limited amount of time that we have this evening to cover all the remaining funds, instead of going through all the individual sections, Section 4 that shows the enterprise funds, it just shows current activity, and then looking at Section 7 for the financial projections and the capital improvement. What I thought I would do is just skip straight to the financial projection section, and we're starting with parking, because parking is the one area that probably will have the most change and maybe a decision point that needs to be made this evening. So if you flip your books to section 7, parking starts on page 26. That's okay. And basically, in the parking fund and in the parking fund projections, one of the first things you're going to see in our assumptions, of course, one of the very first things that we start with is our revenue. And within this proposed document, at this time, there is a proposal to increase some of our rates within the parking fund structure, specifically within the parking decks. And actually, maybe I'll just turn it over to Eric and let him walk through the details for this. Or within that first paragraph on page 26, it's also detailed a little bit more in your user fee schedule.
Yeah, which is back in section 7 on page, or section 8, page 7. Basically, what we're looking for is to increase the rates in the parking decks for permits from $60 to $62, which is about a 3.3% increase. Parking lots would go from 46 to 48, which is about a 4.3% increase. And the right now, we're charging $1 an hour for after-hour rates and weekends. We're looking to take that to $2 and making Sundays free. We're finding that staffing on Sundays, for the small amount of use that, or the lesser use it gets on Sunday, would probably be a good concession with going to $2 on the evening hours and on weekends. And that would help us with our staffing needs on that part.
And Eric, just, folks want to catch up. I do think section 8, page 7 is the best page to look at to see a summary
Sure.
of the fee structure for the parking fund. So section 8, page 7.
So in where it says FY15 proposed, minimum fee this year is $1, next year none? Or does that mean no change?
That means no change.
No
Okay.
change.
That's
Yeah.
what I wanted to clarify.
Yeah. The last time on section 8, page 7, if you look at that, the rates for the deck were changed from $57.50 to $60. That was in 2009. The $1 rate went into effect in January 4th, 2010. And the rates on the parking lots used to be varied. Central lot was higher, it was in the $50 range, 50, 51. Church Street lot was different. They're all different. So we made them all the same and took them all to 46. And that was in July of 2010 also. And really, it's twofold why we want to do this. The first, of course, is to continue to strengthen our revenue and cash flow in the parking system. And secondly, is to increase our cash reserves for future parking, mainly for future parking facility, whether that's a deck or a lot, but also for maintenance. We just spent $300,000 in the old deck. The new deck, the A&E deck, is actually already 7 years old. It opened in January 2007, so it's already got some age to it. The deck itself is holding up well, but eventually the equipment's going to need replaced, which will be tens of thousands of dollars. So we need to make sure we continue to have cash reserves for those type of repairs and replacements.
Any questions on parking?
And the idea is if you're okay with these fees, we would have a resolution on your agenda next Tuesday at your regular meeting for Mayor and Council to vote on the resolution to implement
Correct.
these adjustments.
Illustrate again any change in your fee estimates overall, but that's in section 7 probably.
We didn't, in section 7, if we go back to that.
I just, when I went through, I can't recall what those were.
We didn't make any adjustments for the increases in the rates, simply because we didn't know if we'd be accepted or not. So we went ahead and we just put what you see in here is a 1.5% projected change, and then that just kind of goes out through the out years for the next 5 years. These changes, we estimate, will add about $35,000 to $40,000 in revenue a year.
Right.
So it's not a huge increase, but it's, we'll lose about $5,000 by cutting out Sundays, by making that free. So it's a small loss, and it's not that huge of increase. It's minimal, as I feel. So
Right, so you feel the net is going to be around 35.
about 35 to 40,000 is what we're
And
looking at.
that's, I'm not saying you, but that's not in the
In the
numbers for
projections?
parking
No.
out here.
No.
Okay.
Marty, Mike.
All right. How many times do I got to tell y'all to have a hot mic? So
Anyhow.
everybody's okay with the increases in parking?
We
deck
wanted to bring
increases?
it now so that we'd have at least a month, because we like them to go in effect July 1. So
Sure.
it gives us a little bit of time to notify the
Customers.
people that are renting and that sort, so we can get the notice out.
Okay.
All right?
Mr. Munson?
Eric, while you're there.
Yes.
I park in the university deck every day. And one of the things I've noticed is that the entranceway, not the immediate facade area, but the elevator area and the stair area is kind of shabby. They're badly in need of a window wash, very badly in need of a window wash. Painting needs to be done. There's sometimes, unfortunately, because we all know what's caused it, the smell of urine in there. And if those things, you know, since there will be a little more money flowing in, if those things could be remedied, that would at least be good for the public.
Absolutely. We're working on all those items.
Are you? Okay.
The first issue this past year was the structural issues and the cosmetic issues on the upper decks. To seal the upper deck with new caulking and coating, so it kind of puts a new roof on it. So it doesn't have a roof, but the upper deck acts as a roof. So that was the $300,000. I think we have budgeted $30,000 a year for that deck for the next 5 years to do those projects. New lights, some additional lighting, new painting, things like that.
Is the contractor who was over there during the wintertime
Yes.
finished?
Yes.
Has that,
They have completed the work. We do have some issues, some punch list items. We're working with them. We're actually meeting them on Thursday to address some
and
of
the
those
work
issues.
was to make the place waterproof?
Yes.
Is that what it was?
Yes.
And they've completed that?
Yes.
And let's see, I guess the rainfall we had a few days ago pretty much tested that.
Yes.
Did it work?
Mostly. We have a few leaks. That's why we need to address that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your work on that.
My only concern is the elevator down at the A&E deck.
Okay.
As far as it being, it's maintained. Who is it that does the cleaning of that
We do.
elevator?
We do.
And how often does it get cleaned?
I don't know that.
Okay, because
We have staff
using
there
it-
daily, but
Okay.
a lot of people use it, and it's an outdoor facility where people are,
Correct.
So-
Okay, yeah, because, I mean, I notice it because of going into the Masonic Temple.
Yes.
If there's a function, all right?
Yeah.
And the comments then that are made. That's my only question as to how often it does.
we need to replace the flooring. We did
Yeah, the flooring
last year,
was-
year before,
yeah.
and there's so many people that use carts in there.
Correct.
It's tore it up, so we need to replace
Yeah.
that. Yep, that's
Yeah.
on our agenda. One of the other issues we need to do there is the upper stairwell, that stairwell at the elevator is open, and we need to close it in. The water is just, our elevator went
Yeah.
down because, the water got in, and so
That
we need to.
happens. You're right.
It was a good concept, but it just hasn't worked
Yeah.
in the real world, so we're gonna have to look at closing that in some manner, probably glass or something like that to keep the water out. Yep. That should help a little with that issue, too. Yep, all right.
Within the parking fund, other than the proposed changes in the rate increases, on the operating expense side, really the only big change for this fund from fiscal year 14 budget to proposed fiscal year 15 budget is within the salaries, salary and benefit category. So it's the same story from the general fund. It's the increases that we did in fiscal year 14, plus the continued budget for adjustments and salary enhancements in fiscal year 15, plus the 8.1% increase in health insurance, the increase in dental insurance, increase in workers' compensation. So those are the big expense items, and again, really the only changes within this fund. I think the other major point that we would want to take a look at is the parking deck, the capital improvement section for the parking fund, because other than those things, the only thing that has changed in parking is projections to include if we expand and open a third parking deck, what those fees would look like, what it does to the bottom line. So if we want to go ahead and flip back to the capital improvement section.
Wait a minute, let me ask one question before we go.
Sure.
Is there any plan or possibility that we have to buy major pieces of equipment to go into the parking decks within this budget cycle? I mean, well, is
You're talking about the gate equipment and that sort of
well,
stuff?
I'm talking about whatever equipment is within the parking decks. that may have to be replaced?
Within this
Whether
budget
it's
cycle?
money?
No.
No, okay, so
All the
everything
equipment's
should be good
in
for another
working
year.
order, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, usually the equipment is good for 10 to 15 years, depending on the equipment and how it gets used and that sort of thing. Both decks run about 100,000 people through it a year, so they're getting used pretty heavily. But right now, the equipment's in pretty good shape. We have a contractor called Precision, who, that's all they do is parking decks. They're Johnny on the spot. We call them, they come and fix and replace, and our staff is pretty good at also keeping it in good repair and stuff. So I think with the next, it may be another 5 years before we have to put major money into any kind of equipment.
Okay, good.
And just to look at the few, there's only a handful in the parking fund, but if you go to section 9, on page 37, you'll see a summary, 5-year projection summary of all the capital projects for the parking fund. And again, as Eric mentioned, one of the things that we do for the USMH parking deck because of its age is we do include and estimate $30,000 in the event that we would have to replace any type of equipment there. Everything, the 3 items I'm going to talk about, the funding for all of them are parking fund operations. Parking fund vehicles, again, we have some monies in fiscal year 15, 16, and 17, and that would be covered with parking fund operation. And then starting in fiscal year 15, one of the things that we're looking at
It's a lot of
starting is to
improvements. Yep. We're going to start with the Church Street lot. It's the worst of the lots this year. Part of the overlay contract, we'll pay out of parking to have it slurry sealed and restriped and some other things like to improve the lighting and sidewalk work and that sort of thing. And 30,000 will pretty much cover all that. So each year out, we continue to put money into, and we'll just go lot by lot and make improvements over the next 5 years on each of those.
So then the last item would be a third parking deck, and this would be one that we would definitely need to consider bond financing. Probably the best place to look at the detail and information. Our most current estimates would be on page 165. It's just the detail of that specific project. You'll see that within this 5-year projections, we've included a third parking deck. We've included planning and design along with land acquisition to occur in fiscal year 16 with the construction to occur and finish in 17. We've also included the plan for right now 490 space deck with an estimated cost of $10 million. Any discussion on
Well, I guess we were
timing?
thinking, just to, yeah, if there's a change you want us to make, let us know. Otherwise, we'd schedule a work session in future months over the summer to focus in on this project. We know it's a priority for your discussion and consideration. It's going to take more time probably than what the mayor and council has here today, I think, to sort through the details of the project. But this at least reflects our assumptions in the budget.
And I do think it remains a priority, and I would assume that the third parking deck that everyone thinks of when they look at this is the one on Antietam Street. Although in our Urban Partners report, they are projecting a parking deck eventually being built in the central lot. That is not what we're talking about for this one. I just want to make sure that that's clear.
I'm not clear on that. Absolutely not clear on that. This is a generic parking deck as far as I'm concerned. Our parking consultant said 2 things. A parking deck should be linked to a major project as part of it. And 2, you shouldn't build it on speculation. You shouldn't build it just in an area and hope they will come. You ought to have commitments. So
Sure.
I see it as a generic something that we might do when it's ready and have the funding prepared. But if you look at the parking fund, this runs over $500,000 a year deficit that has to get made up from the rest of the parking fund. This will exhaust the parking fund for the next
30 years.
30 years, 20 years. It'll exhaust the parking fund for longer than what we
Well, and I
want,
think-
unless we find new, or unless we start paying from the general fund, which is not something which, viewing our situation,
Right.
we're prepared to do. So
Well, and in an ideal
I don't
world-
have any objection to discussing it or something, but I don't conclude that this is just, it doesn't say Antietam, it just says third
Right.
parking deck.
Well, that's why I wanted to
And
throw that out
I think we
there,
need
have
to
a
have a
discussion.
discussion. I don't think this is the right place. So I don't have an objection to have it funding, but I think it's good to have it here because it shows what it does, the parking fund.
I think
And again,
eventually we'll need 4 decks.
It runs it, under conservative estimates, it runs over a $500,000 a year deficit.
The state should be kicking in money for a parking deck on Antietam Street for the very reason that there's 2 courthouses that are the primary uses in that block that ultimately would be primary tenants of that parking deck. And so I think
we gain those
as we continue to have this discussion, I think it's important for everyone to know that we're going to be looking for the state's help for
I'm
that
not
project.
talking about just the state. I'm talking about those buildings that it would benefit.
Well, that too.
I'm concerned that, you know, when we were talking about the parking deck before, and maybe in relation to the Board of Ed or something, there were property owners that said, well, I'm not going to improve my building, I'm just going to unearned increment of value. I'm just going to raise the price as high as I can and try to flip it. And something really bad wrong with this picture. They've been sitting on it forever, and then they're going to flip it. We're putting the money in.
Sure.
So I have issues. Let's try to get a buy-in with the construction of the garage.
Public-private
We don't have a
partnerships.
parking district. Most places have a parking district where businesses pay in. We don't because we don't have enough to support it. But there just needs to be a buy-in, I think, by property owners.
I agree.
So those are my comments.
So we'll continue that discussion in the coming months, for sure. Okay, what next?
Okay, if no further questions for Eric or parking, I think we will go back to the financial projection section and we will look briefly at the golf course.
Page 29?
Yes, the assumptions for that begin on page 29.
Which section you on?
I'm so
Section
sorry,
7?
section 7, the financial projection
Okay.
section. Hi, Robin.
Page 29, okay.
And I think for, again, just to try to give us a quick synopsis, with the golf course, I think pretty much the theme here has been steady goes the course. If you look at the historical trends, the golf course has every year realized an actual slight increase in revenue over a prior year. We haven't always met our budget and our estimates and our goal, but we have at least increased revenue every single year. And I think that that speaks of the things that Rodney and his staff has done and put in place and some of the changes that they have made. At this point in the budget, we did not include any new rate changes for the golf course. Everything, all the rates are estimated to stay the same. What I have done, and maybe much to Rodney's dismay, is in the out years when we look, of course, and we've discussed with our topic on the general fund, in fiscal year 15, we had to actually cap what we're going to be able to subsidize from the general fund at $200,000. That is definitely less money than we have been putting there over the last couple of years. So I think strategically we're looking at trying to find ways to get the revenue there. And within the golf course, there's really minimal, a small window of opportunity of where to reduce expenditures, because there's really, aside from staffing, some chemicals, pretty much it's water usage. So those are the 3 big areas and the 3 driving forces in the expenses for the golf course. It's a very small staff. Forget the number of full-time versus part-time.
There's 2 full-time people that do maintenance on the golf course. And then when December comes, a few years ago, we decided to close the course. So for the month of most of December, January, and February, the course is closed. So we moved those 2 gentlemen to work in the parks area. And the clubhouse itself, it's primarily part-time people. Jack Brown is in there 3 days a week. He's a full-time city employee. But for the most part, it's covered by part-time employees, all kind of geared to try to minimize our costs on the labor side. Other things we're trying to do is conserve water. That's a major cost for the golf course. You have to water the course appropriately so that you have decent conditions. It's definitely a balancing act.
If it keeps raining 4 inches a week, will we save water?
That's the good news. The bad news is there's not people playing golf.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And March was not a good month for us as far as play-wise. April was some better, and it hasn't been a good year so far for amount of play because of the weather.
How many people did we play last year?
It's about 10,000.
And so,
10,000 rounds.
for us, math unwhizzed, how much are we subsidizing each round of golf?
We had 10,800 rounds last year. We need about 28,000 to break even. Without the 28,000, the subsidy's somewhere between 280 and 300.
So how much that come out to per round of golf?
30
round of
bucks?
golf,
No.
11,000 rounds into $300,000. An extra 30 bucks a round.
It's 30 bucks.
And we're charging how much?
$27 for a round.
So we'd have to charge $57 for a round in order just to break even. What's BlackRock charge?
Not much more than 27.
And what's their financial condition? Do you know what their subsidy is?
About even.
I think they break about even.
What's wrong with this picture? They have an 18-hole golf course.
They have
There's a number of
5 times as much play as we have.
There's a number of differences.
I
I mean,
think-
if you're asking somebody that plays it, there's a number of
Yeah,
differences.
what are they?
I think that you have a course that is pretty static. In other words, golfers play differently now than they did 50 years ago, and so unless you create challenges on the course, there are very few people that want to play a course that isn't challenging. I think that you have aesthetic issues. I think that you have issues with moving the rate of play along.
Because so many amateurs are playing at the Muni, is that what you're saying?
I don't think it's an amateur issue. I think it's a matter of moving play along. I think that the dynamics of the course. You have 3 par 3s on the course, and so it makes it a little shorter.
Now, I understand the difference between the golf courses. That I clearly understand. Unfortunately, I haven't played golf since my back went, but I played regularly. It's hard for me to understand how an 18-hole golf course, which not only has twice as many holes, but I'm assuming on an average much longer for each hole. So it's going to require well more than twice the water, well more than twice the chemicals, and it's essentially costing us twice per round the amount to maintain the golf course. If it's just the amount of play, then I'd like some comparison. I mean, I think politicians have a long memory, and people are scared to death to even talk about the golf course because they remember what happened when somebody 20 or 30 years ago brought up the concept of the golf course. But it's disconcerting to me when we have the kind of financial situation that we have. The golf course, I would like to think, is something that our citizens can use, and it's a nice recreational facility. But one of the sales points has always been inexpensive play. And when you tell me that it costs the same amount of money essentially to play the municipal golf course as it does BlackRock, that takes out that whole component of, well, geez, municipal golf course is much less expensive.
The cost is not that close. It's what, $11 to go play a round of 9 during the week, and it's probably 20 couple at BlackRock.
Okay.
That's pre-twilight hour.
So I thought, how much do we charge for a round?
27.
Well, but there's all kinds of discounts and special deals and special programs, right?
If you take the
So
card or don't take the card.
that's a straight walking in and off the street, right? 27.
Right. Right.
And
Then there's a
BlackRock
discount you get.
likewise. I mean, I think it's just hard to do apples to apples here.
Well, listen,
I mean,
first
your
of
point's
all,
valid. It's just hard to do apples on
First of all,
twice.
I clearly understand, and I don't want to kick this too badly, because I fully understand that we're not doing anything with the golf course in this budget cycle. I mean, we have a budget in front of us. We're going to we're going to be approving.
We're
I don't-
reducing the subsidy $100,000. We're reducing the
Oh,
subsidy,
no, I mean,
non-CIP.
I'm talking about anything radical other than what we have in front of us. But I think it is time that we, over a period of time, start seeking citizen comments on whether this golf course is an amenity that is valued at, when I hear we're subsidizing $30 for a full price round, we're subsidizing $40, $45 for somebody to play a round of golf. I just don't know if, in our economic situation, whether that's what we should be doing in the future. Maybe we'll get pulled out of it. So again, we've done what we've done, and it's made substantial differences in this budget cycle. But I think ultimately, it's a question worth engaging in. What is the purpose for the golf course, and who are we? Providing?
I'd like to ask Rodney. I'm interested in Kristen's points. Municipal courses. I mean, I played. That's where I was. My background with a crummy old municipal. Nice municipal course back in my hometown.
Good you clarified that one.
Well, that's his
That's
hometown.
my hometown. I'm talking about my hometown.
But I know, but you didn't specify that, so okay,
I'm
so
talking
you're
about
saying
my
from
hometown.
Okay.
And I'm being a little
Junior, do you hear that?
I'm being flipped. Oh my God. I'm being flipped because it actually wasn't a bad course. But again, though, it was there you go.
Well,
a slice. I could never. It was a course with all kinds of right hand out of bounds. And
Well, you probably touched on something that is the problem there, which is a perception that it's just a crummy old municipal
but I
course.
didn't really. I was talking about my course compared to how well they do actually. I mean, I don't live far away. I drive down the street right by it all the time. So I do see it, and waiting for a golf ball to come through my windshield. But other than that. But I guess what I was leading up to, are there incentives? I mean, I know you guys talk about this and are doing what you can. I know you'd bring it to us, but I know we fixed up the clubhouse, and that was a lot of in-kind work by city staff and others, and a lot of vendors donated stuff, as I recall. We fixed up the clubhouse. Is there anything, it doesn't have the clubhouse services that a lot of places have. Still, is there anything more you think we ought to be doing? I mean, are there things like if we did a one-time capital investment, it would yield returns in value-added, rounds played, and so forth?
Well,
You need to fix hole 5.
yeah, well, that's actually one thing on our list.
There's two things you have to address. Golfers, I think, generally go for 2 reasons. One is personal challenge of play, and the second is convenience of activity. And if that convenience of activity at a course doesn't allow you to move along in some fluid process, you don't go back. If there isn't the perception of challenge, you don't return to play really. And so probably every average golfer out there that's played city course, you've probably heard, as I have, you took hole 5 and shortened it, and it has completely changed the dynamic of enjoyment and challenge and convenience of playing the course. So things like that, I think, have to happen.
Are there any high school golf programs?
There are high school golf
Locally?
programs, but not at our course.
So they don't use the course at all?
No.
We don't have 2 par 5s, right?
Right.
Well, and the
We
other-
have a par 36 or 34 rather than 36.
Which is why one of the
Your
options
overall par's 36?
34.
34, that's pretty low, yeah.
So I guess, because I heard a story a while ago about just the whole idea of golf being such a kind of antiquated sport. Sorry, all you golfers out there, but they're talking about ways to modify the game or to have different types of golf games in order to bring, not everybody has, 4 hours to play 18 holes of golf or, however, half a day to do that. So ways to get people in for shorter kinds of games. I mean, is there anything programmatic like that is being explored as well in terms of?
Well, we did the disc golf for a while. We've looked at some other things as far as inviting people for tournaments like glow ball tournaments and different things like that. That we do have 2 or 3 of those coming up next month. So just trying to get more people there with those kind of different things. But
Well,
I think golf courses in general are fighting for a smaller and smaller pool of golfers. And you've seen
Unless you're
some
in
of
Myrtle
the,
Beach where there's like 700
oh, even
golf
there, they've
courses.
closed dozens of courses.
Yeah,
And
that's
you
a
went,
good point.
and you went through 2 years during economic decline of significant changes and damages to the course.
Right.
And you could not play a hole 4
Yeah,
for quite some time.
yeah. About 3 or 4 years ago.
That's right.
Mhm.
And significant changes to hole 5. You had washout on hole 2. You know, and we've driven the course, and I just think that there are
things we wanna do.
mechanisms that
Mhm.
could be implemented to make the
Customer
activity,
experience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
better.
And those aren't big capital improvements either.
No, they're not.
We're handling those in-house.
So we're not going to sell it to a developer, is what I hear.
I don't think we have the legal capacity to sell the course. Within the way that that property is deeded to the city, it was my understanding that if it's not used for that purpose, that it reverts to ownership of that family.
It's a couple of different tracts of land, and I think some of it does have conditions like that. I haven't looked at that in a long time.
Yeah. So I don't want the public to get this vision that the golf course is some cash cow we have sitting there, you know.
Oh, no, it's
for seller's
all
building.
subsidized.
No.
It's
And,
the
and
benefit of the community.
too, and I have to go back because I don't play golf. My daughter does, but she hasn't done it in a while. But also, I don't think that we had the ability of anybody really promoting the golf course
Right.
for some time.
Mhm.
And I don't know what the new girl's doing because I really don't know
She's
anything
definitely
about
trying
it.
a lot harder.
And I know that from back when I was, it still did not move. And you've got to be able to have somebody to promote it, to move it along in
Right.
order to bring the money back in.
Right.
And it kind of like sets aside, okay? Because quite honestly, I mean, it's just like with Fairgrounds Park and everybody that they continue to bring in at Fairgrounds Park, and really who is not dumping anything into the coffers, but as Bruce would say, this is public. You're not supposed to be making money off of the public, okay? So with the golf course, I mean, I just think that we need to concentrate more. It is,
Promotion.
it really is, it really is something to see when it is really being very actively moving on.
And we're doing that. Advertising costs money, but it has to be done. too.
Well, I mean, you know, I just think that there are those in promotions that do know how to get it going and to do what they need to do.
Right.
And again, I know that there is a lot that I had talked to before, which were more seniors, you know, than the younger set like Kristen. But I think that it still is an advantage, you know, for the public to be able to have it. But we need to see how we can promote and get the money back in that we need, rather than for it to continue to come out of. You know, I mean, I go back to the stadium that they only ever paid $1 for how long, and, you know, again, we lost a lot there. So, you know, to see that golf course go, no, I'd hate to see that, I really would. But again, we have to look at it, and you have to discuss whatever holes you're talking about and the whole
We
bit.
have.
I mean, that's what we need to see.
Rodney, are there any records of how many people that play golf there are repeat people? I mean, what Kristen said, there are 10,800 people.
Right. In a year, that's
In
how
a
many
year.
rounds of golf are played.
How many of those are repeats?
I don't know that we have that kind of data. We just keep a log of how many rounds have been played. I guess we could probably do some work on that from sign-in sheets and such.
I guarantee it's more than 50%.
Yeah. There's a lot of what I would call regulars.
Yeah.
And
And you still address, excuse me, Don, you still, as far as doing the promoting of the seasonal, what is it, when you have like a pass that
Yes,
you
the
send
season-
out, right, and I don't know how many of those now.
To city
Okay.
residents, there's season passes available. There's also nine-hole packs that you can buy at a discount, which is a promotion that Councilman Brubaker was talking
Yeah,
about.
and again, looking at that, because I know that
We
the
sell a lot of
seasonal
those.
passes, you know, were
Right.
something. And trying to move that, you know, to get that out there and say, okay, this is what we have and this is what we're offering.
Okay.
But I do know that there was a lot of promotions way back. And then it kind of like went by the wayside because there really wasn't too much that was going on
Right,
with
the course
Parks
was in really
and
bad
Rec.
shape about 5
But
years
Parks
ago.
and Rec, I mean, that's, and I just think that with all avenues, there still should be money coming in, even at parks. There is enough venues that could happen to at least help offset some of this.
We agree.
Well, there's something else here that's going on too. I'd just like to make this point. There's some real value in green space. Shopping centers and shopping areas, quite frankly, they're gone by the wayside. The internet's going to replace them one of these days. And that's going to be a real problem for us figuring out what to do with all those empty buildings. But that area of the east end of Hagerstown, and I was born in the east end of Hagerstown, that area of the east end around where the shopping center is has improved dramatically over the last few decades. And I do believe it has something to do with the fact that there's a lot of green space there, and that people value the fact that there's a lot of green space there. And there is a new senior center that this council was active in helping to come about, going to be going in there pretty soon. And maybe some of those people could be interested gotten interested in playing golf and playing it there and increase the revenues a little bit. So I just, green space does have a value.
All right, any other discussion on the golf fund? Okay.
Do you want me to put together a comparison, as Councilman
I think that
Messner asked?
wouldn't hurt, sure.
Okay. I'll
Well,
send-
Penny hit the nail on the head, though. If it's going to work, if it's going to increase in playership, it needs to be advertised now.
Got to spend money to make money.
When you
Gotta
don't have any
promote it.
dollars to advertise,
But we really
that's the
have to
problem.
promote it, and it really has not been promoted in a
Exactly.
long, long time.
I agree.
And I
You
also
know?
think
Working at
you
that.
got to get young people interested in
That's
finding
really our target
different and
audience.
fun ways to play the
Experienced
game.
golfers, we know they're going to be there, and we think they take pretty good care of them. We're trying to target a younger generation. So
When Tiger
you have to find.
when Tiger comes back, get him up here.
Well, there's this thing called the Tiger Woods effect that everybody started playing golf when he became famous and up and coming, and then they overbuilt golf courses, and then as that's kind of played itself out, golf courses are struggling because there's not as many people playing.
Okay,
But we'll keep working at it.
thank you.
Thank you, Rodney.
What do you have next for us, Michelle?
I think what we'll do is skim through the utility group. Right? Maybe we'll start with light, do light, water, and then wastewater. The reason I say skim here jokingly was because I know, we've seen their numbers, we've seen a lot of their contracts they've brought back, and we've already implemented and passed a 5-year rate study. So on the electric fund side,
While you flip over, just a quick synopsis, because we already do have it in place for electric, as you all will recall, and for those watching tonight, we're going to a new contract on June 1 of this year, lowers rates, and then we have, for a 1-year contract extension, and we have a 2-year contract extension that takes us through May 31 of 2017, and that's a $2 megawatt hour reduction. So customers will continue to see the electric rates go down. If you remember on our 5-year rate study then, for wastewater, we're playing a little bit of catch-up the first year. Our rates for the next 5 year go 12%, 4%, 4%, 2 and 2 to carry us out for increases. And water, it's 2% every year for the next 5 years. So we're really not keeping up with inflation, but with the cash reserves that we had and some of our projections, which we've tweaked a little bit, we feel confident we can kind of hold to the model.
But even that first year, the average was under 10%.
Yes,
Some
sir.
bars are at 9.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Yeah.
You make a really good point about electric rates falling. I can remember reading a lot for a long time about electric rates increasing. And here in Hagerstown, electric rates have fallen.
Yes, sir.
I don't remember reading too much about the fact that the citizens of Hagerstown are getting a great deal on electricity.
Yes, sir. And
Because
we
of
do-
work that you've done and people that work with you. And perhaps some other reasons too, but nevertheless, it's happening.
Yes, sir.
And people need to understand that that's one of the values that we have in living within the corporate limits, or certain corporate limits of the city of
The
Hagerstown.
57 corporate limit.
67 or
57.
I thought it was 43.
I thought it was 49.
So 43, I always heard
Electrical was
57.
43.
It gets
It's 43.
farther
43.
back every time I hear it.
Yeah, we'll have it back to the turn
You're
of
just
century
getting older,
soon.
Marty.
And once again, we have been fortunate, just market conditions, when we've locked in on the electric side, and we do continue, we get every filing from the Maryland Public Service Commission, Delmarva, Pepco, all those guys are requesting increases. They do their purchases a little differently than we do, but still, they're requesting increases, and we're still fortunately continue to go down. We certainly pray that can continue after 17. We'll continue to look and hope that it does.
And all one needs to do is look at section 4, page 6 to see the comparison between all these other providers, to see that we're the lowest by far among Potomac Edison, Rappahannock in Virginia, West Penn Power, Shenandoah Valley Electric Co-op, Potomac Edison, Chambersburg, and BG&E, by far. So keep up the good work on that front.
Thank you.
And that only happened because of Hagerstown staff.
Thank
So-
you, sir.
Mike.
We're here. Thank you.
Of all
Thank you.
those, City of Hagerstown Light Department, the rates are $63.96. And if you look at the highest, it goes up to $108.05. So quite the bargain in comparison. Absolutely.
Yes, thank you.
Good job. So if you look at the financial projections for the light fund, really Mike kind of summarized it in very quickly.
Page you're on, Michelle.
If you go to section 7, page 16. And basically, the story here is we've been able to continue with the contracts and get the reduced rates, and we've passed those rates on to our customers and savings. So you actually here will see our revenue hold steady, actually decline, and then hold steady, hold flat in the out years.
And we have to compliment the entire workforce because each of them multitask compared to how other utilities operate. Our linemen work in the substations, meter guys read meters, they help, everybody kind of crosses across, which helps us save a good bit in staff costs just for what they'll do for us there. So they get a lot of kudos also for helping us to hold
Well,
costs
and
down.
they deserve it.
Yes, sir.
And in a
absolutely.
big rainstorm, when the tree falls over Northern Avenue, they're out there cutting the tree up,
Yeah,
right?
a very dedicated group, yes.
And, so, yeah, they are a dedicated group.
Just to clarify, in Public Works on that one.
Oh, sorry about that.
Eric,
I thought it was a cooperative, I thought it was a cooperative arrangement.
Eric was giving me the.
Oh, Eric.
Sorry about that.
Well, it
I
does take a
apologize.
team, and the team needs leadership, and there's certainly good leadership, which is why we're able to realize those kinds of savings.
Well, when the transformers blow up, they're out there. And
Absolutely.
they always blow up at the most inconvenient
Yes, they
times,
do.
right? When there's 4 or 5 inches of snow on the ground,
Yeah.
when the temperature's below
Ice.
0.
Yep.
So, and we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Anything else worth,
Okay, Eric.
worth pointing out there?
If you look at the projections in the out years, again, you'll see that the revenue's being held flat. The changes that you're gonna see is basically a little bit on the expense side, specifically when it comes to depreciation and investment back in infrastructure and capital equipment improvement projects.
And for each of the three, of course, you're going to see, increases in labor costs that are coming up, health, medical benefits, that's all kind of factored into for the 5 years. So, and that does definitely have an impact on us.
Correct.
But you're satisfied with the cash balance in the out years?
Projection-wise, we think we've done a good job on it, and are we ever satisfied? No, but.
I'm not
we
talking
like- we
about
like-
the accuracy of the
I know.
projection,
Yeah,
I'm
we
talking
like
about
to
the
keep, of
amount.
course, yes, sir, 2 months, we like to have at least 2 months of operating revenue within it. We think we've kind of captured that.
Okay.
As a nonprofit, it's tough for us to do much more than that with our yearly audit at the Maryland Public Service Commission, because we would rebate it back to the customer. So we have that level that we attain for our cash reserves plus our
Yeah.
guaranteed rate of return, which is like 5%.
Right, beyond a certain amount, they
Yes,
wouldn't
sir.
permit you as a whole.
Exactly.
Yeah, we started on holding funds. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Any questions on electric then? Are we done with electric?
I am, unless Nathan would like to add anything.
No, I think you guys did a very good job.
Oh, man. You are included in the kudos. Eh?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You are, Nathan. Move on to water then.
Sure. And again, one of the big stories here in the water fund is our 5-year rate study, which we already got, we're going to have implemented, but it's already been approved.
Yes.
I think maybe one of the bigger stories is R.C. Wilson Phase 4 plan improvement.
It's about the 50% mark as far as billing. We anticipate Phase 4A to go online on first, second week of July, and then the project should be completed the end of December. So it's moving along very nicely.
We did make a request for the first phase due to the inclement weather over the winter, which we all experienced. We did request a 60-day extension from MDE, and they have granted that as of last week. So that helps us a little bit too in the funding source to move forward on that. You know, as you look through, you know, we make a lot of assumptions. You know, some of the ones that are kind of hard to hit between the model and what we do in our budget projections because of the difference in timing, debt service, benefit and allocation charges, depreciation. So there is a little bit of difference in what we did. We kind of understate expense to a degree in the budget compared to what we did in the budget model, which helps us just balance the budget a little bit better. The model and the budget are still very close, but there are some subtle differences in it just because of the timing that we do.
And again, the big increases in water fund on the operating expense side, as they mentioned, salary enhancements and the benefit structure.
But project-wise for CIP in the out years, once we complete our Wilson project, we want to come in this summer and have some discussions on our Brickner plant and the operations for some hopeful guidance from the council. We don't want to go into it too far now. We'll have a formal discussion, but just on how we receive water, how we treat water, how much we need to spend on the plant to bring it up to the chloramination level that we're going to achieve at the Wilson plant. So we'll be back in the summer and have some further discussion in regard to the Brickner plant, William Brickner plant.
And again, just like on the Hagerstown Light Department with the water department, and back in section 4, we do also include a chart in rate comparison to competitors in the area, and that is in section 4, page 14. And you'll see at the chart, I went back and double checked to make sure we didn't misdo those numbers. So you'll see the city of Hagerstown to the far left of the chart at $25.60, and then when you look at all of the neighborings, we compared it to towns and other cities, and you'll see the highest goes to $127.15.
How much is Cumberland? 71.38.
Yes, 71.38. Thank you.
$30 more than we are. Well, the next
well more than 30.
Yeah. Well more than 30, yeah, $45.
Well more than 30.
But our rates are going to go up, but as I remember, we're still well below.
Yes, sir.
After that, because we did get that in numerical form.
Correct.
These charts are very good, though, when we're talking to citizens and stuff. I mean, it's very useful. I just generally say your rates are low, but it's nice to have the specifics.
We talked about history a little bit ago on our territory that we use, what number. Historically, for when the R.C. Wilson plant was done in the mid-20s, we were granted a 50-year loan that didn't kick in until 30 years. So we had basically a free operation for 30 years, and the 50-year loan kicked in. We just paid off the loan for R.C. Wilson in 2008, something like that. So, what a great help that was to us in order to get water to our citizens, kept the cost down all these years, which has helped us continue this. So the people many times before us have definitely laid the groundwork for us operationally there, and kudos to them.
Can you find any more of those loans? We could do a lot of things on a loan like that.
Yeah. Who did that? Was it the Fed? Was it like a redevelopment?
I don't remember. Al was a historian on that. We always had that discussion, but the 30-year deferral and then the 50-year loan. It was a federal. Was it
like a New Deal or Power Authority? They had some.
Once again, that was in the 20s when times were good. It was even before the crash, before the crash in the stock market. So,
Because the plant went online in '29.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's before.
yeah,
Mhm.
so.
All right.
Okay. And I think the last of this group, last but not least, Joe, sorry, would be the wastewater group.
And once again, everyone here has been aware of the financial struggles we've had just to bring the plan up to, standards for MDE and EPA. Thank you all for your assistance during the years. We have come a long way. Still operating without a permit violation. We're over 5 years now. We think even with the recent rain that we fought down there that we're within permit capacity at that point. So once again, kudos to staff for their operation.
So you were
during all
operating at capacity, 31.5 million gallons a day, is that right?
Yeah, and that's basically what we can read coming in, so.
But that's from overflow.
Yeah, a lot of that was ionized.
Yeah.
That is correct. But of
Right.
course, it counts towards us just for our
We-
daily flow.
Right. The capacity is 11 million MGDs, right?
We are in the process,
Not there yet?
Well,
I'm
we're
sorry.
10.5. Yeah, we were at 10.5. We were permitted at 10.5. MDE has requested an engineering study to prove that we can operate at 10.5. We've supplied them with that. We'll be meeting, we're confident. We've done a complete study that they've requested to move back up to where we thought we were at the end of ENR,
Which was?
at 8.
Well,
Eight
8
is
now.
where we
yeah.
started. 10.5 is what we went to and were permitted at through our
Yeah.
permit process at 10.5. But
Okay.
MDE for a capacity, they wanted a hydraulic study done. So we've completed that part of it now, submitted to MDE, hopefully we can get it straightened out
So
with them.
officially, we're 8. We're
Officially,
about to
we're
be
8.
10.5, not 11. Well,
10.5, yes, 10.5.
At one
is what-
time, we talked about 11, but it's 10.5.
It's 10.5.
Okay.
Yes, sir, it is.
All right.
It's not been an easy task with them. They've had some change in department heads and chiefs down there, and some of our early discussions evidently didn't carry through to the new regime, so this is why we're having some of the issues now.
And with wastewater, again, the 5-year rate study's in place. The big ticket item here, Synagro, one of the things, and again, that's something that's already come back in the contract and some of the other things that have been
Approved last
recently
month.
approved. So as far as wastewater, other than that, we got some projects lined up, but nothing really.
Synagro is the biggest project that we have right now. We want to get a backup sludge holding tank online, because the one that's online now hasn't been taken out of service for several years. So we want to be able to take that out of service and clean it up, and we have to have a backup tank to use during that time. So that'll be the first phase of the Synagro project before we move into the actual pelletizing facility to start replacing that equipment.
All right.
We
But
did-
that's all incorporated in your.
Correct, that is
That is
correct.
all
That's all
incorporated.
been
Yeah.
approved. There's no.
And there's been no change since the
No,
budget came
no,
out
sir.
that's significant?
No, sir.
Okay.
No, that was in our rate model and also reflected in the
Okay.
budget. We caught it both places. The only, I guess, addition, we did apply for an ARC grant, as you all approved last month, and hopefully we can get some of that and some matching funds. But that would be something we would have to maybe shift a few things around, but and we were ranked number 2 in that, so maybe we may get some grant funding this time.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't stress enough the, importance of supporting the I&I projects every year, because, I mean, it's obvious from this last storm that we got, there's only, a couple hours, really, really hard rain. Our flow went to 30 million, and that's a direct indication that we need to keep working on our I&I problem.
And a lot of it is groundwater influence. We see that now because flows have continued to stay somewhat elevated at the plant. What are we running now, 12?
Yeah, it hasn't dropped back down below 12 since the storm,
So-
and
so-
that's unusual.
So it's
but-
groundwater intrusion. Remember, we had some discussion, when we do all the lining of the pipes, we basically push the water somewhere else, so it intrudes into people's laterals and still comes in on us. So it's going to be a constant battle. We can get the big intrusion out, we're still going to get some of the smaller flows to come in on us.
Well, we can never deal with people with lateral, with going into homes you're talking about?
Well,
That's where a lot of your iron.
some of it
Well,
is,
right,
and
but
we're
we're not
lining
deal
back.
with
Now,
that.
we have worked with customers where we've done some lining,
Yeah, I mean, that's what you do smoke tests for, to determine if they have illegal connections such as downspouts and sump pumps. Those are the types of things we like to try to get out of the system, because it's an illegal connection, basically, is what it is.
And we are seeing some, we work with the contractors where customers are doing their own lining, bringing in the same contractors we do and doing a PVC lining inside the pipe without digging it up. So we've worked with a couple of those on that also. So that's a help to
But
us.
we're doing a steady trunk line program.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Is it adequate, or?
For the funding that we have now, yes, and we're trying to get the bang for a buck. We're basically we've been spearheading doing a lot of our manholes, doing curtain grout on those, because we saw a lot, they're all handmade
Right, well,
brick.
that would-
That gets a lot of it out, and then we work on the pipes as we get the money. Yes, sir.
Yeah, a big help was the study that Black and Veatch did, I guess, prior to me coming
07.
here. And what they did was they identified the problem areas in our system, which is very vast, and basically gave us the areas that we need to concentrate spending our money on. And that's what you want to do. You don't want to just go out there haphazard and, you know, without it being a problem, spend money on it, because relining sewer lines is very expensive.
And we do have them ranked and rated. We probably have enough work lined up for 10 years or 12 years already on the books
Right.
whenever we can get to it, but we're prioritizing down for the most important.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Let me make one other comment.
Yes, sir.
I would like to point out that the taxpayers of Hagerstown really got their money's worth, their tax money's worth during this most recent storm. A lot of places that experienced the storm had breakdowns, serious breakdowns of services, not the city of Hagerstown. Everybody in your departments, electricity, water, and wastewater, managed those departments in such a way that those services, those vital services, continued during that storm. And that was, we all recall, almost 4 inches of rain. And your departments and all the people that made that happen, Mike, should be congratulated for that.
I'll make sure it happens again.
I'm sure we were the envy of a lot of places on the East Coast of the United States of America.
We certainly hope so.
If we could, while we're passing out accolades, we had to acknowledge Nelia Tidler, who's kind of the budget financial guru of our utility operations. And Nelia, wave your hand back there, but she does a whole lot of work on our finances and budgets here in utilities.
She's a great assistance to each one of us that are up here, and also Michelle has given her accolades in here also. She's really the guru for us that keeps us going financially, and we do appreciate it. She's our silent partner. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Yep.
We're going to look at the property management fund, is that right?
We can if we have time.
Or do we just want any questions on that from council? Any questions on the economic development, section 5, pages 11 through 12?
Just a note on economic redevelopment, one of the things that's included in our budget is to do the Franklin Streetscape program. So I wanted to make sure that we mentioned that was a new program that we added in there. And then we also added a small amount of funding in there, I think like $15,000 for a Main Street program.
It does
Within the economic redevelopment fund.
Page 12, it says the percent change in 2014-15 is 34,320%. That can't be right, unless
Okay.
I'm
So tell me what
something.
page again, I'm so sorry.
Section 5, page 12, under revenues. That percent just looks really wacky to me.
Yeah. That is kind of wacky.
Just wanted to make sure somebody was paying attention.
Well, careful reader of the text here.
And the reason for that is because in fiscal year 15, we've included community legacy grants of $150,000. So what happens is in our fiscal year 15 budget, we're looking at about $172,000 in revenue versus fiscal year 14 budget of only $500,
Oh, I
which
see.
is the interest that we make on
Gotcha.
our
Still isn't
council.
No,
No, I'm just.
That's an Excel
That
copy
was-
error.
Right.
Yeah, that's an impressive increase.
That was probably,
Give me
March
34,000 times
28.
500, I'll take it.
Okay,
Great catch,
so any other mayor and council discussion of other?
Only if, did you have any highlights from the property management? I mean, the other council members want to move on, it's okay. I just wondered if there's anything we ought to know.
Maybe at some point we come back.
Why don't we do
Just
that?
if that's helpful to the mayor and council, and we can talk about how we're doing with our property management
Okay. I
in
think it'd be
general.
good to have a refreshment.
Not just a financial
As a separate
discussion,
agenda.
but
Yeah, I
because of the,
Because it's really, there's so many funds in there and.
And so many buildings and tenants.
Right. It'd be good to get an update at a regular meeting.
Sure. One of the last things I do want to do real quick is with the motions and the changes that were made last night for the general fund, the adjustments, there will not be a change to the motion itself because we didn't change anything on the expense side. What we did was made 2 adjustments to the revenue where we were adding. So what I'm going to hand out is attachments that I wish to add to the motion so that we can see and give credit where credit is due.
Gotcha.
There you go.
So while those are being passed around, is there a motion to go into special session? Have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second to go into special session. Motion made by Mr. Metzner and seconded by Mr. Munson. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. We're now in special session. First, to consider the introduction of the ordinance for tax rates.
Mr. Mayor, hereby move for introduction of an ordinance, May 20th, 2014, to establish the city's tax rates for the fiscal year July 1st, 2014 through June 30th, 2015 on the basis of .898 cents per $100 of assessed value of all real property and 2.245 cents per $100 of assessed value of all business personal property within the city of Hagerstown. These rates reflect an increase of .11 per $100 for real property and .275 per $100 for business personal property over the current year.
Second.
I have a motion made by Mr. Brubaker, seconded by Mr. Metzner. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. So I have, Ms. Nye, what was your vote? Four yeses and 1 no. Motion carries, and the ordinance is introduced. Next up, the consideration of an ordinance for the budget, FY 14-15.
Mr. Mayor, hereby move for introduction of an ordinance, May 20th, 2014, to adopt the city's budget for the fiscal year July 1st, 2014 through June 30th, 2015, in the total amount of $121,227,222.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Brubaker and seconded by Mr. Munson. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor, just very briefly, I know that we're going to be voting for this again, and I'll say this again at a later date, but on the general fund contributions to nonprofits, I would just ask eventually as a council that we agree not to expend those funds that we're budgeting until we discuss them and decide which ones we actually wish to spend. I've seen a lot of conversation, both electronically and otherwise, with people who seem to agree that we have some issues that need to be addressed. We don't have to address them here, but I would like to address them before we actually expend those funds. It's
Duly
just my
noted.
opinion.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. So there's 4 ayes, 1 no. Motion carries, and the ordinance is introduced. Those will be back on our agenda next week. And with that, we will have the city administrator's comments.
none from me this evening.
Council comments? Who would like to begin? Mr. Brubaker.
I want to say there was the annual Historic Preservation Awards banquet, the county commissioners and others, the Convention and Visitors Bureau, and some very worthy recipients every year. And I want to say congratulations to the prize winners. I won't go through all of them, but well-deserved. And it's a great event where many of the people that are interested in that subject and just interested in the community in general can get together and feel good about some of the things that have been accomplished in the county. It's almost an unlimited agenda of things that could happen, but I think it's a good event, and I want to thank the folks responsible and
Thank you.
the award recipients again.
We'll just keep going around the table. Mr. Alshire.
A couple of items this evening. The first is, as indicated in our discussions yesterday afternoon or evening about the budget, I would only note, this is the sheet that I provided last year of the 3-year 14, 15, 16 analysis on both the revenue and expense side. So I will provide that to folks again, which outlined those items that we discussed yesterday and my concern with both our immediate and projected issues with our budget. And the second is we all received a letter of expansion for the Daniel G. Schuster Concrete. For folks unfamiliar, you will certainly be getting calls, as I have, from residents within that area. It's the concrete plant next to the Big Dipper or the overpass. If you drive by, you'll notice there are, I'm going to guess at this point, hundreds of tons of disposed concrete waste. They have applied to the Maryland Department of the Environment to place basically a rock crushing plant on site that can crush up to 150 tons of rock per hour, with 300 to 500 homes within the vicinity of that location. While I think the homeowners in that area certainly aren't opposed to that entity operating a business there, I think they are expressing some concern. I have folks stopping by my house already with some concern over what 150 tons of rock per hour sounds like, feels like, smells like, what type of dust it creates. And I don't think that they have a lot of answers at this point, except that an application's been made. An MDE is in process of issuing its air quality attainment permit for the plant. And this isn't a plant that's going to be proposed to be inside of a building or stationary on site. It can pretty much be moved around the site. And so I would think that much like we expressed our interest in the stormwater management pond, and its functioning capacity there behind the auto zone, this
Advance Auto.
Yeah, Advance Auto. Or the scrap label or whatever it's called. This I think falls in line with that type of activity.
I just hope it's not a gray area.
So,
All right. Mr. Munson.
Oh, help me out. What was the name of the group last night?
Great No Chaser.
The Maryland Theater has had a weekend of great events, including one last night. And it was a fascinating show. It was an incredible show, much more than I expected. I had never seen the group nor heard of the group before until Sunday's newspaper. But the one thing that I thought was most interesting was most of the restaurants in downtown Hagerstown were closed. That theater was filled up. I was in row Q, 1,900 feet above the ceiling.
The nosebleed seats?
In the nosebleed seats. And the place was filled up, and all these restaurants who failed to be open last night could have benefited from that. I think the restaurant owners really ought to be taking a look at their their plans and the schedule of the Maryland Theater. And one other thing, I saw by the morning paper that the school board is apparently getting very serious about expanding downtown, and I applaud them for that. I think it's a great move in the right direction.
Yep, look forward to that continuing conversation. Ms. Nye?
I'm just glad to hear that the Fair Union has now accepted the contract, and hopefully it will now move forward. Also, with the delegate that had come in the other week, Maggie McIntosh.
Last week.
Yeah, I just hope that staff does take a look at properties that were discussed by her as to where, for the most part, it's not homeowners, but the other ones taking advantage of property taxes as being reduced, and also looking at nonprofits as far as empty buildings. I think that it's necessary, and it has not been done. And now that it has been brought to our attention, I think that it's something that should be looked on. And I think that the public should also know, okay? This is what we're paying, but this is what they're paying, and this is how they do it. That's all.
Thank you. Mr. Metzner?
I would agree with Councilmember Munson. Last night was an example that a Class A internationally recognized act can sell out at the Maryland Theater and be very successful. And as Don and I were talking last night, one of the things I think that struck both of us were the theater was totally packed, and I bet you I didn't recognize more than maybe 10 people in the entire theater that I knew. And the impression one certainly had from the applause that was generated when certain communities were mentioned is that the vast majority of people at that concert were probably from out of town. And it was very frustrating to see that it was very difficult to find the restaurant downtown. I'm sure Bulls and Bears, as usual, was packed. Was absolutely packed. We had a very nice dinner at Kobe. And that was very nice, but a very nice event, a very nice example. I think Bill Cosby is going to be the next one to show that you can pack the theater at the premium price with a premium act. And also, as you can see with Straight No Chaser, you get the right act, you hardly have to advertise it. This act hardly had any advertisement whatsoever, almost was sold out upon the announcement that it was going to be there, just by the amount of people who follow the acts and see their website. And I promise you, the comments, we all know it. We all hear the comments at the Maryland Theater with first-timers that are there. And those people that come here from out of town and see this venue, I saw the same act down in Baltimore. I was in the next to last row at the Maryland Theater downstairs and was 3 times closer to the stage than I was when I saw this act in Baltimore for more money than we paid last night. So the people that come here are coming back if we have the right acts.
You attempted to eat downtown last night, didn't you? But you couldn't find a place downtown. That's amazing.
Well, and I
Because
understand
the restaurants were closed.
even restaurant owners need a day off, but I do think it would behoove them to coordinate more
They can take Tuesdays off
with events,
sometimes.
with events that are going on downtown, maybe open for a special occasion like a packed theater. Certainly. Well, for me, I just want to thank Chief Holtzman for the wonderful ceremony that he put on last Wednesday for National Police Week, and to honor all of the 6 fallen officers that the city of Hagerstown has lost over time. And it was a very well put together program and well executed, so thank you, Chief. Also want to remind folks that the Ride of Silence will be tomorrow night, starting at Fairgrounds Park. Bring your bicycle, bring your helmet, and meet at Fairgrounds Park at 7 o'clock. Unfortunately, I won't be able to make it due to a prior commitment, but I expect it'll be a good ride. And I think with that, if I'm not forgetting anything.
Sort of forgot, this weekend, Memorial Day.
Oh, absolutely.
Sunday at 2 o'clock is the wreath laying at the courthouse.
Correct.
It's a very, very frustrating thing for those of us who always attend and see that the average age of attendees is probably over 60. And then at 6 p.m., if I'm correct, at the
Medal of Honor
Triangle, there's also going to be a wreath laying and a ceremony there. I would encourage everybody to try to attend something this weekend. It's like half an hour to an hour, and the veterans appreciate it, and you know, it's really easy to give people lip service, and it's just amazing how many people do not show up for these ceremonies to express their appreciation.
All right, well, thank you for that, and with that, we'll be adjourned. Have a great evening.